Aloha to the Lahui. Welcome back to Connected Dots with Jenny. Today was the beginning of the end of the federal Diddy trial. The prosecution, Christy Slavic, went up and she brought it. She took the whole last 6 weeks, she wrapped it up in a pretty little picture, in a pretty little present, and shoved it up Diddy's team's ass. I am so happy and proud of the prosecution because finally, after these last few weeks of ridiculous craziness with Jane Doe, they brought it and wrapped it all together and showed the jury that they got Rico on lock. Aloha, you guys. Welcome back. Today started the prosecution's final closing arguments. Tomorrow is when Diddy's team is going to take the stand. This video, we're going to talk about what the prosecution said, and I'm going to give you, just kind of my opinion on how I think it went. So she comes out swinging. In my personal opinion, if you guys want to watch what she actually says, I read the whole dialogue of what she testified today, and it's in my live videos. Go and look for part 1. And then I ran out of time because it was like an hour long. Because her closing arguments was it was all day. So she started at 10 a.m. They went to lunch, I want to say like around 1, came back at 3, and then they went to lunch, came back at 1, took a break, came back at 3 something, and then she went all the way probably for another hour after that. So she spent 4 to 6 hours, I want to say, around there today pleading the prosecution's case. And tomorrow, Diddy's defense team finally gets to do their closing arguments. So if you want to hear exactly verbatim what was said, go ahead, look at my lives. I have part 1 and part 2. Watch those. So she starts off very practical, logical, and to the point and grounded. And she's like, these are the charges. This is what I need to prove to you. And this is what I'm going to prove to you. And she begins to name, she goes, this is what bribery is. And she reads what the count is. And then she pulls up the testimony from George. I forget his full name, but George, about how he got bribed by Diddy and KK $50,000. To which I'm pretty sure Eddie. His name is Eddie. Eddie something. Eddie takes the bribe. Eddie and the other guy takes the bribe. KK and Diddy buy the video of Diddy beating Cassie in the Intercontinental Hotel. They sell it to him for $50,000. Boom, bribery. Got it. Got him. Okay. The reason why they got that video is because Flores, who was a security guard who got called that day in the hotel, took a video recording of the video on the security camera. So he had a copy. But Diddy made Eddie sign an NDNA and paid him $50,000 in cash, counted the money out for him and everything, and paid him off. Boom, there's one RICO charge. The prosecution was very clear. We only need to prove 2 acts. And then she proceeds to read like, I don't know, 100 100 acts. Nah, maybe not 100, but a lot. Proceeds to write about how he hired male escorts, brings out the receipts for the airplane tickets, for the payment to him, for the extra tip that Diddy gave to, I forget his name, maybe Anton it was, because he did such a great job. And there's a paper trail for all of it. So the prosecution did a great job of, in my opinion, what happened with Jane Doe is she really kind of muddied the whole testimony for the prosecution, because what ended up happening is it became this really big circus about how much she was just so in love with Diddy and she wanted to do all this stuff for Diddy. And then he had her doing freak offs and she didn't like her freak offs. Well, they were called Wild King Nights. And she didn't want to do them, but she needed a place to live and he paid for her rent. And so she had to do them. But she, in my opinion, she wasn't the greatest witness. But what she did do that was great is she corroborated everything that Cassie testified on the stand. Because everything that Cassie said he did, and that she was forced to do is exactly the same things that Jane did and said, or that Diddy had done to her as well too. So, if anything, Jane Doe was only great for that. She was able to corroborate Cassie's story. And so the prosecution was on it. She was like, there's only 6 that they needed to prove. I believe it was bribery, two of prostitution, sex trafficking for prostitution, number offense 1 and number 2. And then it was, no, they got arson dropped and kidnapping. Oh, you guys, let me go look at my paper. I'm so sorry. I should be more prepared. Where is it? Bribery, witness tampering, forced labor, prostitution related offense number 1, related offense number 2, and then drug distribution. So she brings it. She's like, comes out swinging. She's like, bribery here, boom, proved it. Text messages from KK, text messages from Diddy to Eddie of making payment. Boom, proved it. Witness tampering, boom, proved about with Capricorn Clark and Mia, how Mia worked all these long hours and was forced to, oh no, that's forced labor, sorry. Number 3, forced labor, forced Mia to work 5 days without sleeping. She testified that on stand. Boom, proved that. Witness tampering, I don't remember specifically what he said, but she brought in witness tampering because what was that? I think it was all these things. Oh no, yeah. They brought up how there was this whole enterprise of people who, as assistants, they had to work for Diddy or else. Diddy was the one who was in control. You couldn't tell Diddy no or else. They made it very clear at the very start of the prosecution's closing arguments. They said Diddy was the head of this enterprise. And then from then on, boom, they say it was KK and it was his security, his bodyguards. So that's between D-Rock, Fahim, Rube. Is that it? Ruben something. And then Rogers. I think that's his name. Anyways, she kept bringing up. She's like, okay, so he was the one who organized it, and then these guys followed all his stuff, his personal assistants, his bodyguards, KK. She brought up KK so much today on what everything KK did, on the fact that KK had firsthand knowledge, knew exactly what Diddy was doing, participated willingly all along. She said that so much today. She almost said KK's name more than she said Diddy's name today. Like, that's how much she said KK's name, which only makes me think they're going to file federal charges against KK. You're going to have Rico. You got to have other people. So, and D-Rock and Fahim. Because all of them, and then, so then she also went to, they approved prostitution because there's so many receipts, flight, airfare, travel, their travel going from LA to New York, all Atlanta to New York, all this different traveling. Okay, they have receipts for everything. And then drug distribution. She says right there, we don't have to prove that the amount or the quantities that he purchased. All we need to prove is that he got drugs and he dispersed it to other people, which they proved with so many testimonies by Cassie, by Jane Doe, that he would always supply them with drugs so that they could perform in the freak-offs. With Mia, he forced her to take drugs for the very first time. I want to say she said for the first time, maybe not, don't quote me. How he gave her drugs. He gave Brendan Paul, the drug mule, who had carried his drugs and then got busted and then later got immunity to testify against him. She outlines every single thing. They got the RICO on lock. And then at the very end, she wraps it up and she says, count 1, we've proved it with this. Count 2, we proved it with this. Da, 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 da. And she goes all the way down. I will be very surprised if the jury does not find him guilty. Based off of her testimony or closing argument, she wrapped all of it up, wrapped it with a pretty little bow, and handed it to the jury and was like, and what now? So tomorrow is when they're going to start with Diddy's defense. Now, here's my thing. Diddy's paying almost or over $100,000 a month for his team of 10 lawyers. When it was finally their turn to represent him and the prosecution rests their case and they gave it over to Diddy's team, they spoke, they had zero witnesses. They spoke for about 10 to 20 minutes and then they rested their case. The only exhibits they had were text messages between Jane Doe, I want to say, and Diddy. And what they're doing is they're going to paint all of this to be just domestics, that Diddy just likes to have open relationships with multiple people at one time. All of this is just personal stuff in the bedroom. That's what his defense team is going to say. However, the government prosecution has proved, and the reason why, the way they proved it is they've had personal assistants who was not in a sexual or romantic relationship with Diddy. They have a ton of assistants who testified. They have Mia, who was testified as a pseudonym. That's not her real name. That she was R-worded 3 times by Diddy. That she was given drugs. That she was forced into labor. So prosecution did a great job. We're going to see how Diddy's defense team is going to do tomorrow. Personally, I hope they do a hell of a lot better than they did prior. Not that I'm rooting for Diddy, but I tell you what, if I was spending $100,000 on lawyers per month and that's the kind of work they're doing for me, I'd be livid. Like he could have saved his money. They really were not a great defense team. They're quite disappointing. So tomorrow morning, I'm not too sure what time it's going to start. I want to say it's 10 a.m., but I could be wrong. They're going to go ahead and they're going to do their closing arguments. And I'm going to make sure I stay on top of it. And I'm going to bring you guys the news. So hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Thank you so much for tuning in. Tomorrow we're going to see what their last fighting chance of a defense is to the jury. And then boom, right there, it goes to deliberation with the jury. I will be very surprised if they actually have a verdict by Monday. But what I do know is the judge and the lawyers are trying to have all of this done before 4th of July, which is a week from now, next week, Friday. So you guys stay tuned, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and I'm going to keep you guys up to date with factual news regarding the Diddy case. Aloha, lahue, have a good night.